Okay, let's go ahead and get started. My name is Joe Kunk. I'm a Microsoft MVP in Visual Basic, fourth year running. And I also work for Dark Container Corporation in Mason, Michigan. Some of you may have heard the big news that went out this week about Dark Container. We announced that we were going to purchase Zillow cups. So we're going to essentially double in size. We're purchasing a company that's 1.6 billion in annual revenues and about 7,500 employees. So it's a big purchase. Yeah. You know, when they announced that at the office, they said they tried to get Toby Keith to come and sing the solo song, but he was busy. Solo cups. So think about me whenever you have a red cup with a white inside and some fun beverages inside. We will soon be making those, hopefully, if the Department of Justice doesn't have a problem with it. So, what else do I want to say? This presentation, I actually gave this presentation the first time in about a 15-20 minute version at the Microsoft MVP Summit about a month ago. So it's a little bit practiced, but this is a longer version of it. I'm glad you're here. I know it's a Saturday, a lot of other cool things you can be doing. It's reasonably warm weather still. But I'm glad you're here. I think the session before lunch is the best one because if I finish early and run out of material, I can always say, well, can I just test you? Yeah, get to the front of lunch line. And if we run long, we can stay around and finish and just go into lunch. So it's the best slide. So I'm glad you're here. This is my contact information. I'll show the slide again at the end of the presentation. So if you want to write this, if you get a chance to write this down or whatever, you can do it at the end. Normally I walk around the room a lot and use my hands a lot, but because of the microphones, I'm going to stay seated here. So it'll be a little bit different type of presentation for me. So another thing about me that I didn't mention is that I write for Visual Studio Magazine. I've been doing that now for about 2 years. I write the On VB column, and some of you may know Sam Nasser out of Cleveland. He's going to start writing that column with me as well. He's got one article in the queue so far, or published so far, and he's going to pick up more. So I noticed the discussion on the Build conference keynote actually, where they mentioned the SQL Azure Marketplace, and so I kind of picked up on that. Thought, well, what the heck is that? And really started checking it out. And as a result, I ended up publishing 2 articles on it in Visual Studio Magazine, and those are shots of the articles right there. So you're free to go read those articles if you want a little bit more in depth of what I'm talking about here today. Both those articles have code bases, so you can download the code and try out the code. So I just want you to know they're there. It's real easy to get to. Just go to visualstudiomagazine.com, hit the columns on VB, and then it's in the list. So it's real easy to get to. The Windows Azure Marketplace, it's interesting in that even though it's under the Windows Azure moniker, you don't have to have an Azure account to do this. And technically it doesn't use Azure at all other than perhaps as the repository of the data. So this is not your typical Azure talk in the sense that I want to show you how to move things up to the cloud and do things in the cloud or whatever. This is in the cloud, but it's in the cloud in the same sense that Xbox Live is in the cloud, or the same sense that some of the other things you use are in the cloud. It's not something that supplements your data center in a sense. It's just about data. And the Windows Azure Marketplace has 2 different sides to it. There's an applications side and there's a data side. So you, as a developer, can go in and write an application that will reside in the Windows Azure Marketplace in the application side of the house, and you charge basically a monthly fee for people to use that application. So it's kind of like a Windows Store in a sense. I know that on the data side of the house, the way that the payments work is that you get 80% of whatever you collect on your monthly fees, and Microsoft keeps 20%. But in exchange for that, they do all the billing. It's basically through the same platform that bills Xbox Live. They handle all the customer inquiries on the bills, and all you do is collect a check. So that's, to me, in my mind, that's worth 20% easy. No hassles, right? And I suspect it's the same way on the application side, although I haven't specifically confirmed that. So it's something to think about. You see, this is a shot from the main screen. I'm going to go to the screen live here in a second, but you can see on the top of the screen here, there's 57 free databases in the marketplace at the time I took the screenshot. 74 paid, and 26 have a free trial of the paid. So, you know, this talk was about free databases in the cloud. There are plenty of them, but there's also some paid ones. And some of the paid ones are pretty good, and the prices are not necessarily very high. And for $10 a month, you might really want to subscribe to that database, depending on what your needs are. So don't think that you're limited to just the free ones. There are some paid ones there that are inexpensive and potentially very worthwhile, depending on what you need. And this also gives you an idea of some of the classifications of the data that's out there. And I just think this is a real hidden gem of the Windows Azure space, because, you know what, data is powerful. And just having, you know, and I'm going to show you how just easy it is to access this data. And having that available for business uses or even personal uses or whatever is just really powerful. So here's just some of the organizations that are contributing databases right now. You see there's a lot of, you know, United Nations, there's a lot of governments. The United Kingdom government has jumped on here and put some substantial data on here. And the marketplace is worldwide. So as it works out, it goes out to 9 major countries for the billing. I'm kind of mixing things up here a little bit, but the Windows Azure Marketplace can bill in 9 countries. So it's mainly Europe and the US. So if you're charging for data or you're charging for apps, and you're the author of that, you can charge in those 9 countries. It's like Germany, you know, France, England, US, whatever. If you have a free app, if you're not going to charge for the data or the app, then they'll extend it to the rest of the world. And the reason for that is because they only had the billing mechanism set up in those 9 countries right now. As they have more time and they get a chance to extend their billing mechanisms into more countries, then I expect that number to grow. But right now it's 9, and it's a pretty large population that you can reach across those 9 countries. So the URL to get to the data market, either applications or data, is very simple. It's just https://datamarket.azure.com. So pretty easy to remember. And that'll take you to the home page, and let's go ahead and flip over to that page right now and hope that my internet's going to work. Let's see. This might be it. So I'm going to go to the home page, show you what that looks like. Get some response, I hope. There we go. So here's the home page. If you were in the BI presentation earlier, hour earlier, a little tiny bit of this will be repeat because he basically gave an introduction. I'll go to much greater depth of information on this. But here's the basic homepage of that URL I told you. And you will notice right here at the top, there's a sign in. Well, I'm signed in already, but it would be sign in. And you sign in with a live ID. So all you have to have to use the data market or the application market is a live ID. You don't have to have an Azure account. So this is something you can take to business leaders in your organization, to charities or whatever, and say, hey, look at this great data you can get to easily, because they don't have to sign up for Azure to do it. Any questions? In fact, my live ID doesn't currently have a credit card listed. So I know that I'm not going to get billed off this because I don't even have a credit card on it. And I've had no problem accessing the free data sets even without a credit card on the account. Okay? So has anybody used it before? Used Data Market, or nobody's used it? Okay. You're in the right room then. Okay, good. So let's go ahead and click on the data list here. And I'm going to click on the free over on the left, so I'll just kind of stick to the free accounts for now. And you'll see that I'm filtering to data and to free. And so within here are some of the free data sets. And then you'll see on the right that I've already subscribed to some of these data sets. And so the worldwide historical weather data. If you have an interest in climate, if you think that you want to do some research on climate, this would be the place to go. I'll just click on one of these to show you what the screen looks like when you go there. And you can see that there's a free level of 100 transactions a month maximum. Then there's 100 for 12, and I don't know the difference. I picked the free one. And then you can, if you go up higher, it's 100 or 2,000, and then you're going to start, paying for it. But you can do some limited research on climate data around the world with this without paying any data. Paying any problems up to 100 transactions. 100 transactions. Transaction is called a web service, right? So 100 calls to the web service over the course of a month. One of the nice things about the way this works is that if you hit your limit, it doesn't automatically go up to the next one and bill you for it. If you hit 100, you don't get to call anymore until your counter resets at the end of the month. So if you sign up for free, you are truly limited to free. You don't get any unexpected bills. If you hit your limit in the middle of the month and you want more, then just go up and click the the paid level, and then you'll have it. But that's your decision, and it doesn't happen automatically. So yes.
Is there ability, as a developer, for me to hit 100 times while working and creating my front end app? It's very likely. Is it just from other consumers, or even if you're hitting it as part of your?
When you hit this account, even with the free level, you're giving your username and password that they've assigned to you. So it's logging to your live ID. So you could, in theory, have multiple live IDs and use that within your application. If you ran out, just switch over to the next one. It will track it to your, even the free queries track to your live ID. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I thought you were going to ask, can I programmatically jump up to the next level? I don't know the answer to that. I've not tried to do that. I know it just stops. Now, 100 is fairly low, but there's other services here where there's thousands, so they're not necessarily that low. The publisher of the data gets to decide what these levels are and what the prices are. I mean, it's totally up to them. So we'll see some different ones here. Now, I want to bring your attention to this little area down here below the red cancel button. It says, if you can see it, it says .NET Class Library, C#. So this particular service is what they call a fixed query service. So the company that's publishing this data has put together a C# library for you that has method calls in it that will call up the data for you. So they've already predetermined the queries, coded them for you, and they give you a C# library just to call. Now, even if you're a VB programmer like me, you just compile it into a C# library and call it. So no big deal. So this is still a 1 or 2 line code type usage, even though it's more complex. They've done the complexity for you, and that's a free download, of course. And I had that in my sample application. I'll show at the end. The other kind of query you can have is what they call a flexible query, and it's up to the publisher. A flexible query is essentially a raw OData feed, and you can build whatever queries you want with LINQ or whatever into that OData feed. So then you have unlimited access to the data within your skill set within LINQ. Okay, so at this point, I've given you a little bit of background. Let's go ahead and look at some of the databases that are out there, because there's some pretty interesting ones out there. So for up to 25,000 transactions a month, and these are in no particular order, you can go out and query census data, if you have interest in that. Zillow.com, if you're familiar with that website, they're a real estate website. They have 4 different databases in the cloud here. You can go get exact details on up to 30,000 properties a month for free. Now, they limit it to 30,000 because they don't want you to create Zillow2.com and put them out of business, right? And that's another good point to bring up here, is that each of these databases come with individual licensing terms, and you really need to read each one to see what you're allowed to do and not allowed to do. But as it was mentioned in the previous session, most of the terms of service will indicate that you can use the data, but you can't store it, because they don't want you to compete with it, right? They want to have it be their data. So it's considered to be a one-time use only type of data consumption. Obviously, as long as you don't abuse it, probably won't be an issue. But that's legally the answer is you can't store it. Most cases. The World Health Organization has there's a lot of nonprofits in the Lansing area where I'm from, and they have interest in this. Unlimited transactions, so there's no limit at all on the World Health Organization within the UN. Federal Reserve Bank data. Now this is a paid one, but you can query up to 250 bank sets of information a month for $10, as you see there. Oops.
Question.
Yes.
Flip that around. We're looking from the developer side of it.
Okay.
On the data provider side of it,
Yes.
if they don't charge anything,
Uh-huh.
They may not make anything, but say I'm a city and municipality and I want to push out some of my budget information or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
Is
Yep.
there any cost on them really on that?
Only the hosting
pushing it
cost.
up.
Only the hosting cost. Microsoft doesn't pick up the hosting cost.
Oh, okay.
They do not. So, if you want to publish, I'm skipping around, sorry. If you want to publish data on this, which I think is a very valuable thing, I mean, I have a whole article on it. You have the 80-20 thing, right? You keep 80% of it. You set the rates. You decide how many transactions are at each rate, and you basically what you do is you take your data and you create no data service for it. Now that's as simple as pointing Entity Framework at it and exposing it, and it's a couple lines of code, right? If you've got a clean data model. Once you've done that, you have to host the data. So you can keep the data in-house. If you keep the data in-house, which is convenient for you to continue to update it and do whatever you want to do with it, then you would contact the data market team, and they will create an SSL link to your site. You will provide them a logon, basic authentication, logon ID and password that they can use to access your service. You'll lock it down so that's the only ID available, because you don't want other people getting there, right? Especially if you charge for it. And you want to keep control even if it's free. And they'll just redirect. They'll build a no data service that'll redirect to yours, okay? And it'll be invisible to the consumer.
If I'm hosting it in SQL Azure.
Yeah, that's the other option, and I think it's probably the preferred option, is to host that data in SQL Azure, and then all you gotta do is tell them the username, password, and which table, and they'll take care of it.
But I'm still paying for the cycles.
You are.
Data storage and all that.
You are. So, as a community providing a public service, they may not be a big deal. If you're an entrepreneur, you may want to charge a little bit just to cover your hosting costs. But that's up to you. Totally up to you. Zillow apparently feels that it's worth it for them to do that, and they don't care. They'll just absorb it. Okay. United Parcel. Let's see. Parcel data. Go back here.
Excuse me?
Yes.
So, Microsoft Windows is doing some sort of validation of the data or whatever, let's say, some ABC company puts some data. So, are they doing some sort of validation before taking the company or data, or they are just taking it?
You can't. If you go, okay, let's do this. If you go back to their website, if I go to the home page, at the bottom, internet's slow, sorry. They have a whole publishing toolkit where it's essentially a Word document that's like 12 pages long that goes through all the terms of what you have to do to publish it. There is no place where you can go on here and just say, here's my SQL Azure table, publish it. It's not automatic. They have to vet the data. So they'll go through the data. They will ensure that it meets their standards, probably making sure that it doesn't violate any copyright laws, decency, provisions or whatever else. And then they'll actually publish it for you. So there's a manual step there. It's just like the Windows Store. They have to check it and make sure it meets their standards. So you cannot directly publish. Now, once they've published it for you and you own that data source, you can change the data source all you want, as long as you don't continue to violate any of the provisions you've agreed to. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. So I just want to show you on their home page, as you go down to the bottom, yeah, they moved it. Such things happen on the internet. Okay, so there's a button up here called Publish, and you'll go to the page on publishing, and then this is where you get all the information about either to publish apps or to publish data. Okay? And they have a toolkit. The toolkit is basically just a big Word document. But there's all kinds of, you have to send test files, you have to tell them how you want to test, what's the right way to test it, all kinds of stuff.
It's not automated after that, is some team needs to come in.
They need to set it up. Right. Now, that said, you could read this Word document. If you have a data set you want to publish, you could read this Word document and probably get everything done in a couple hours. It'd be an afternoon project. It's not weeks. So in the afternoon, you could probably prep a data set and have it ready for them to vet. Okay? So I want to go back and just look at a few more of these here. Microsoft Translator is a really good one, especially for developers. This OData service will translate up to 2 million characters a month for free into any of 36 languages. Okay? And not only is it a direct literal translation, it's kind of a colloquial translation, so they'll try to make it a real sentence and not just a direct word-for-word translation. So it's an intelligent translation, if you want to call it that. And 2,000 characters a month is a lot. A particular web service will go up to about 1,000 characters, so you could translate a paragraph on one call if that's what you want to do. One of the big uses I see for this is if you have an application you need to localize into another market, French or German or whatever, I would take your data set and build your localization resource files using this service as a first cut, and then get your app running under the foreign language, whether it's right or not, and then give it to a real person to validate and change whatever they say you need to change because it didn't quite do the job. But think about the difference in cost. You're going to save a lot of translation service money by doing that. Okay? And I have a demo of doing a translation with this. Geodata service, this one actually costs $20 a month. Datestream is an interesting one that just popped up recently. It's free, and basically it has all the data about each week of, I think it's each day since 1900, and it talks about day of the week and dates till the end of the year and all the stats you'd ever want about dates, and it's available as a web stream. So there's cases where that might be really useful than trying to sit down and compute all that out.
Holidays?
Huh?
Holidays?
I don't know. I have a call to it. We can look at it. Good question. Legal.com is legal articles, bank locations, phone number validation. If you've got a database where you need to validate a lot of phone numbers, make sure they're still valid. $150 a month for that. This is an interesting one. China small and medium enterprise KPIs, or key performance indicators. And it goes into things like accounts receivable, offering profit, sales growth. So say you're an American business and you want to market into China. Well, one of the first questions you're going to have is, what company should I talk to? Well, you can go into this free database with unlimited transactions and go find that company in that geographic area that you want to market to and see who's the best person to work with, because they have similar sales volumes, similar markets, and similar whatever, right? That's a pretty powerful thing, and it's free. Address verification you'd expect. Melissa Data, you probably heard of Melissa Data. They have data sets in here. They sell it, of course. Geocoding. It's a little bit expensive, $350 a month for 1,000 transactions, but if you really want to do some high precision maps, you could use this for a month or two. When you subscribe to a service, it's per month. So if you do one transaction in that month, you pay the full month. So it's as long as you've done a transaction in that month, you're paying for it. So just be aware of that. Okay, they don't prorate it. Environmental hazards. If you're thinking about relocating your business to somewhere else in the country, you can go check to see if there's any environmental issues where you want to go, right? Another one you might want to check is crime. There's a database here for crime. Voting project. This is an interesting one. TRST rank. This is actually Twitter rank. So what this does is this rates you on how the quality of your Twitter followers, and they update this database every month. So it's just kind of for fun, but it's really interesting to see. It's not ranking you. It's ranking the quality of your followers. Now. I'm going to go ahead and demo that, pull that up and show you. I have my MDC site that I built that I can pull that up in. So I'm going to find the right screen. Okay, so let's check Scott Good. Let's see what his quality of his followers are, right? I'm going to go ahead do the query. Scott, let me zoom in. Scott Goo has a ranking of 3.3. It's a decimal number. And just for kicks, let's check mine. It'll be lower than 3.3, I guarantee you. Right? Oh, 0.7. Actually went up. That's 0.5 last time I checked. Good. Anybody brave enough to put theirs in? Anybody want me to put theirs in for them to see what it ranks?
Sure.
Okay. Can you what the type?
ONOR underscore IO.
ONR.
Underscore IO.
Okay. So do I have that right?
Yes.
Oh. Okay, there.
Sorry, didn't mean to throw you.
No. No. Did it go over to a different place or what?
That's my Twitter handle.
Yep.
slowly.
Let's try that again.
From the web.
ONOR underscore IO, right?
Correct.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Don't know why.
David GR.
Is it DGR or Data GR?
Yeah, I think it's GR.
Is that what's the rank? Is that a 5-point scale or a 10-point scale?
It's just a
0 to 100, I thought.
Must be 3.3.
It goes up to 100, so. But it goes up to 100, but I'm not sure if 100 is good or 100 is bad.
Wow.
Is it DGR or David GR or?
I think it's David GR.
If it crashes, it's probably on my website. 0.9, he beats me. Woo! All right. Anyway, it's just kind of fun. They refresh this first of every month. They actually, parse all the Twitter information, and it's based on here is one. So Scott Goo was 3.2. Remember, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's put an S Hanselman. Let's see how the Scots do compared to each other, right? Scott Hanselman is 4.65. He beats the Goo. So anyway, it's just kind of fun. But
Handle battle? Rank battle?
yeah.
Put 2 names in.
So anyway, it's just kind of fun. So it just shows the example. It's really easy to do. We're at 12 even, or pretty much noon. You ready to see a little bit of code? Okay. So let's go look at a little bit of code. Go across here. This is just a snag, so that's not what I'm looking for. Although it is code. Okay, so here's some code. So we talked about how there's flexible queries. So when you go to these websites, they'll give you the service URL to go to access their site. It's in the details of there's a little details tab at the bottom. And if it's a flexible query, then all you have to do is go into your application and do a service reference to it, and then it'll automatically import all of the methods it supports, and then you just write your link query against it. So there's a FBI crime data. One of the databases we have available in this set is the FBI crime data from 2006 through 2008, and so it's a flexible query service. So here you can see, I'll zoom it up a little bit. Oops, not that much. So you can see that we just set a reference to that service container that's generated, okay, as part of the service reference. And we pass in the URI that they give us on the data web page when we sign up. And then I have to do a get credentials, because I said you pass in the username and password with each call. And the get credentials method is essentially something that I wrote. I have my username and password up in the registry, and I pull it down for the registry and return it as a network credential, just so I don't expose it in the middle of a presentation. It worked well for the article as well. But so it's just really basically reading the registry and just creating a log on from it. And then the dim model equals is where I take that service context and then I just do essentially a link query against it. So I want city crime where the state is Michigan. Okay? And I believe that there's no other criteria. No, that's it. And then I just return to the model and show it in the model of MVC. It's a single line query. And And it could be any number of things. And if I run this, let's get back to my screen. We'll hit that and see what it looks like. Okay. So crime data right here, that's for Michigan. And it's a little small, but you can see that we've got, I'll zoom in and then we'll just scroll around on a little bit. But we've got, Adrian, Michigan in year 2007 had a population of 21,612 with 123 violent crimes, 37 forcible rapes, robbery, aggravated assault, property crime, burglary, larceny, and motor theft. That might be useful to know. Okay? And at this time, it's only available from 2006 to 2008. I don't know what process they go through to decide what they're going to expose the data, but that's what we have right now. And this is FBI data, so it's pretty quality data. And this is essentially nothing but a automatically generated view in grid format off MVC. I didn't even do any coding here. It's very, very raw, just to make it easier for me. So, and then like Zillow home valuations. The four databases that Zillow has is they have the market valuation, and what they've done here is you can essentially recreate the entire Zillow page by these links. So they don't give you the graphics or the pictures of the house or anything else, but they give you the links to them. So as programmatically, you could grab that and go grab the pictures and build your own page, right? And so, but the four databases they have, and I'll zoom that in and show you. The four databases they have on the bottom there is home valuation, your mortgage information. Now the mortgage information, what that is that's per region. Mortgages vary across the country, right? Not everybody gets exactly the same rate everywhere in the country. So you put in basically your zip code, and it'll tell you in that zip code, these are your current mortgage rates. The fixed 15-year, 30-year, whatever, right? The neighborhood data will give you information on basically demographics of your neighborhood. It'll give you comparable sales. What houses, real estate's realtors want to know that stuff. And then property details. So you can put in I put in my house, and it told me how many bedrooms I had and how many baths and all the stuff that is public information. So really powerful database. Each one of those is 30,000 transactions a month. So you get 30,000 a month on each one of those. Okay, so enough of that. Is this interesting so far? Just to know what's out there and it's free and you can go to it anytime you want? Okay, well this is, so I showed you the flexible query. Let's go look at the inflexible query. And then I'll show you a way to get to it without coding at all. Which means I'm really jumping around. Okay. All right. That's not working for me. Close this. Stop debugging. And the inflexible query over on the right-hand side in the Solution Explorer, you'll see that I have these. I had this VB set and the C# set, but I had these different CS files that were downloaded off the service. So I basically just dropped them in and call them. Okay. Now see what they look like when you call them. The TRST rank is one of them. So let me go ahead and go to that controller and show you what the call looks like to a fixed service. And it's not that much. Basically, I just set up the screen in the index, and then the ranking is done in this method here in the bottom. I'll zoom it up for you. Okay. So I just pass in the Twitter model. I go reference the context. I pass in my credentials again, same as I did before. And I just call the context though is the context that they generate in their C# class they gave you. So it's not a direct off a service reference, it's off their class. And then I just check to make sure it's not empty and I display it, pass it back to the view. So again, either way, it's just a couple lines of code. Very, very simple. All right? Make that clear. And the articles I talked about has this NBC website up there, so you can pull it down and look at it more closely if you want. It's an NBC3 website. I had to rebuild my computer this week because I got my daughter borrowed my laptop over the weekend and got a virus on it.
Oh, your daughter.
Yeah, well, it was my dog. So anyway, she's college, and so I had to rebuild it, and I had to put NBC3 on. I put 4 on, and I found out that it wouldn't run in 4. So anyway, quickly loading 3 last night. If you want to give this to someone that's non-technical, though, there's an Excel add-in, and it showed briefly in the BI presentation earlier. If I go back to the web page, the main web page, which is here, and we go back to home, sorry, it's slow. In this little slideshow on the top, one of the things they show is the Excel add-on. So if I just go, one more. If I just go click on that, it brings up the page for the Excel add-on. And so this is a free add-in for Excel. And you just go ahead and download and install it. And then if we go over to Excel, which I hope I have running, right here, you'll see that if I go to the Data tab, it puts this button here on the top. I'll zoom in. It says Import Data from Data Market. So that appears automatically in Excel as soon as you install it. And so when I click on that, what it does is it brings up this panel on the right. And on that panel and I have to sign in with my username and password, my live ID. And as soon as I do, I get all these, all my subscribed data sets over on the right-hand side. Okay, so this is something a very non-technical user can handle. And then to use one of these, we'll just do a translation. You just click on the import data of the one you want to do, and it'll bring up, assuming the internet's cooperating, it will bring up a dialog box that you can then use to fill out what you want to do. And so I'll just click on an empty cell down here, and I want to translate. I have choices of translate, get the languages that are available for translation, or detect. I'm not sure what detect does, but I want to translate, and I want to translate. Usually, these data sets are huge, right? That's why they're in Azure. So typically what I'll do is I'll go over here to this limit number of results and click it so it limits me to 50. Because if I forget to do that and I do a crime data query, after it gets about 150 pages, I'm like, oops, I didn't mean to do that. You know, there's a lot of data up there. So make sure you hit this limit number of results option pretty much every time. Now, in the case of a translation, we're doing a single line, so it's not a big deal. But with a full data set, you want to be careful. But I want to go over here, and it's not cooperating with me.
Can I set that to a range? So if I already had the text in my Excel spreadsheet, I could actually translate across just the...
Right now, it's limited to a number, so it'd be the first, but you can sort. So I would assume the sort would, we'd have to check that, see if the sort's before or after.
Well, that's what you're saying. I have a predefined 50 items that I actually want to translate. So I want to say, take these and go off and translate those to give me back.
Not through this interface. This is an interactive interface. If you want to do that, you would write your code, probably write a little code. Yeah, it's not a lot of code.
Right. Otherwise, what I'd have to do is have that, have this, get the data, and then...
Right. Okay. So, it's not working for me. Okay, so hello in the language of English. No, text equals hello. 2 text equals text equals ES, but it's got no language it's coming from. It's gonna work. Ola. So we went from hello to Ola. Okay. So it's a little bit more, if we go to the Twitter thing, I showed you the Twitter thing through my MVC site, we can do it here as well. So, but I think a little bit more powerful example is to go into, there's a database called PowerLinks, and it's about US companies. So let's pull up that and see if we can find out about Microsoft over here, right? So I'm going to go to the PowerLinks data trial, okay? And I'm going to go in and say, click on this. And you have multiple, when you have these databases can have multiple data tables or data sets. And so you see right here, if I zoom in, there's actually multiple things I can ask about through this PowerLinks database. I'm not limited to one, right? So whatever they decide to publish as independent tables within the database. So here, what I can do is I can say, I want to get an organization, and I want it to be Microsoft. So I'm going to get an organization. It defaults to Microsoft Corp, surprise. And I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I'll import that data into the database, I hope. My internet's been spotty. I'm going to cancel that and try it again because usually it's either it works right away or it doesn't. Let's try it one more time. If not, I've got a back, or have I actually done it? I can just show it it's completed. Spotty connection. Yeah, not getting good enough internet. All right, I'm gonna restart. Okay, we'll try this again. I said it's the data tab. Import from Marketplace. I have to sign in. It should remember my credentials. Okay, so there they are. I guess it's not bad to see it again. It loads all the icons and stuff. Let's go to here, import data. And I want to get organizations, and I want Microsoft. Okay, so there's information on Microsoft. It turns out that their main office is this first one Microsoft Way in Redmond, right? So their organization number 549187 in the database. And I'm going to go down here to an empty spot, and now I'm going to call this service again. And I want to say, well, this time I want the details of that organization, and it's the same number. Took it off my clipboard, I think. So here's information on Microsoft. And I'm going to scroll this up a little bit. And you'll see that Microsoft is active. It's got a headquarters. It has more than 10,000 employees, 10,000 or more. There's the mailing address, fax, phone number. Again, a lot of this information is publicly available. There's the website URL, sales amount. Okay, they're listed at about 584,000 or 584 million or 5 billion. What is it? I don't know. I have to put some commas in there, but pretty good amount of sales. And that's not surprising for Microsoft. But think about, you can go get this for any company, right? Okay, well that's interesting enough. But now we have this ID number for this company. Well, who's on the board of directors? I want to contact somebody at the company. I want to go, up to the high ups, or the one guy in my company calls the big heads. I'm going to go talk to the big heads and interact with them. So I just go back to the service again, and I can go get director details for that company. And now we find out who the board of directors are. Bill Gates III is chairman, and then so on and so on, right? But now we know Bill Gates' ID, right? So let's go learn a little bit more about Bill Gates, right? So again, think about this as a research tool, right? Pretty cool. And I'm not programming anything. So last thing I want to do here is show you, I'll bring this in. This is just one of the databases. And now I want to get person details. And on this person, and bring that in. And now we find out that, and I'm going to scroll this up a little bit. I'll zoom it for you. And we see here that Bill Gates is his primary job. His primary job right now is that he's employed by Berkshire Hathaway, and he's a director at Berkshire Hathaway. And if you wanted to contact him at Berkshire Hathaway, I'm sure he'd appreciate that. You can reach him at gates@berkshirehathaway.com. Public information, pretty cool, right? And we have a mailing address, we have a physical address, and an empty phone number, sorry. But pretty cool, right? This is from one database, multiple data sets. We can explore it and drill down and see what's going on. You could, as an application developer, you could build a nice interface for this if you had the time. And these are just simple OData calls that, as you saw, are just a couple lines long. So we pretty much have covered, I think, the majority of what I want to cover. Do you have any questions? I can show you more databases, but you can go out there and browse them yourself. Yes?
How easy is it to know see how many transactions you've already used?
Oh, okay. Good question.
You know, you can see on the front page you've got 1,000 potential,
Right.
right? You need to know if you've got enough to make it through the rest of the month.
Right. So let's see if I can answer that question without giving away all my secrets. Okay, so there's my account information. Hurry up, write it down. I go to my data, and I can say use. So here's one of the databases. We were just hitting the Twitter thing, right? And also the translator. So here it says on the translator, I have 2,000 characters per month allocated, and I have 1,998,000 left. So in this, you go to the My Data section of your account area, and then each of your subscriptions are listed and how much you've used it. Now, how to query that interactively, I really don't know, but at least you can get it here. Okay. Another question that somebody asked me in the first presentation I did on this was, can I get a list of my subscribers? Can I know who my subscribers are if I publish my data up there? And I actually contacted the Data Azure team, Marketplace team, and asked them that question. And they said that it depends. And if you want that data for raw marketing purposes, the answer is no. They're protective of their subscriptions and their customers, right? If you have someone that you feel is being abusive of your site or your service for any reason, you feel like you're having an issue with them. If they agree that it's truly an issue, then they will release that information to you to help you resolve that issue. Okay. If you are testing your service, if you're having problems with your service and you need a couple accounts just to help figure out what's going on and why it's not working, they will potentially give you that. But there has to be good reason. They won't just blanket give you that information. Okay.
But if it's a paid for fee, I'm charging for, I would see actually I see there's 26 people paying me, but I don't know who those 26 are.
You will get a check for 26 subscriptions. If you have multiple levels of that subscription pricing, you won't know which ones were chosen. You'll just get a total check. So if you've got a $100 level and a $300 level and you get a check for $600, well, was that 2 $300s or 6 $100s? You don't know. So price it appropriately so you can tell. But anyway, this is something I knew nothing about until I watched the Build keynote, and I heard them mention it, and I thought, well, let's just go see what this is, and I found it to be something pretty cool. So I just wanted to share. The whole point of today's presentation was to make you aware of it, hopefully get you interested enough to go out there and explore it yourself, to understand just how easy it is and how cheap it is. And also, I think about maybe any data that you have or your clients have or your company has that maybe you might want to put out there. I personally would love to see a data set with all the car models. I want to see every car made and their parts and their options and their colors and everything else, so I can write my own program to figure out what car I want to buy next. Keeps me out of the showroom. It's a good thing. But I'd love to see that.
How would you check the applications part of this?
Oh, you want to see the applications part of it? Sure. I pulled up one application just to, in case I was having trouble with the internet. It's called, one of the ones that is published is called Fetch. And what Fetch does is it brings this data down to your mobile phone. Okay? So it works great in Excel and everything else, but if you've got an Android or an iPhone or something, you might want to get to this data. This application for $2 a month will help bring this data down to a mobile device. I haven't used it. I can't recommend it. I just pulled this at random out of the application marketplace to see something to show you.
But these are applications that just get the data coming from the same source, right? They're not just data apps. They're Azure Marketplace data apps.
I don't think you're limited to providing data only in the Azure Marketplace. I don't think you are. I haven't researched that side of it as much, but we'll go to the home page and hit the applications and take a look. Here's a CRM Live. That's not an data Azure database. That's a CRM tool, right? There's the fetch that we just saw. Food health levels. The desktop analyzer for for performance or whatever. So I think it can be almost any kind of app. I think it's essentially a Windows XP Vista 7 data app market, basically. And how, again, it's just like we said, it's you decide the rates, you keep 80%, they keep 20%, and all you do is collect the check.
Can you actually see who your customers are in the app so that you can do support?
I haven't asked them on the data side, on the application side. I suspect the answer will be similar. I suspect that you'll provide support contact information, and they can contact you, but you probably can't contact them. But if you built your app with a check for updates, if you built your app with a, announcements window, you certainly can communicate with users that way.
And your app is likely to collect the data itself.
I'm sorry?
Your app is likely to collect the data itself.
With it, as long as they don't see anything they don't like when they vet the app. They still have the option of rejecting the app. Yep. So, obviously, this will probably never be a delivery mechanism for certain types of information. Just because of if it's politically sensitive or anything that would potentially, get the marketplace in trouble, they may not allow that through. And that's the world. That's the world we're going into. There's so much virus and hacking and everything else that I think we're migrating in general to a model where all our applications are vetted by the providers first, because we can't trust a company we don't know, and we've learned that the hard way too many times.
Is there any mechanism to provide or see the dictionary or see the real meaning of it?
That's up to the provider, but the answer to that is to some degree yes. Let me go ahead and scroll up, and we'll go to the data side. That's one of the reasons why I wrote the demo NBC app, is because, for example, let me just pull one up here to show you what they give you, and then what I've done to extend that. So, Translator is pretty straightforward. The date stream has a lot of data in it. Maybe they've given us some information on it. So as I scroll down on this, I can explore the data set, There's an option here to explore the data set once, right inside the Azure Marketplace. It's just another way to get to it, just to see it. And then there's here's that service URL I talked about. You have to have that to call the web service. And then they just chose to, they don't have to, they chose to, and they basically give you all the tables and all the fields. But that's because they chose to do that. Not every vendor does. Okay? The UN databases are really good about not giving you what their measures are, what their categories are. So I had to write a program to dump out their categories as one of the calls just to see what I could report on. But then, you know, like there's a whole UN database on AIDS. You know, if you're a healthcare professional and you're interested in AIDS, I know, you know, community health, we've done some work with the Michigan Community Health. And, you know, we can dump AIDS stats on Michigan through this UN database. Okay. All right. Well, it's almost lunch. Thank you very much.